Welcome to the Turn Outward Show. I'm your host, Samuel Beck, and today I have my wonderful, incredible sister, City. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. This is the first podcast, and obviously it's something that is going to grow and
Yeah.
evolve into something amazing. But I really just want to, like, my purpose in life is to turn outward, to give, to live my life full of passion, and also to grow and become better each day. And
Yeah.
so this is kind of my way of asking questions to people that I know and care about, like you, but also just people who are living their lives and giving and growing. Like, I want to
Yeah.
find those people, hear their stories, and share it with the world.
Awesome.
So thank you for being on here. And can you just give our listeners a little introduction about yourself and kind of where you're at and what you're doing in life?
Yeah, for sure. My name is City. I currently live in Arkansas. So that's
Nice.
actually where we are. Sam's visiting me in Arkansas. I got a job here after I graduated from college. I studied computer information technology. So I work as a product manager now, working on tech for a major retailer. And yeah, I've been out here. It'll be 2 years in July. So coming
Nice.
up on 2 years. I like it out here. It's been fun, but that's basically me. I just building my life out here in Arkansas and
Yeah.
living the dream.
And that's awesome. You're doing great. I mean, it's fun because everyone's kind of spread out in the country in our family right now. And
Yeah,
I don't know, it kind of feels like you're on your own little island a little bit
it
right
does
now.
feel that way.
I
Well,
was
you're
gonna,
all in Idaho right now, which is like,
yeah,
I mean, I know you're about to leave, but I feel like, yeah, I'm kind of in my own little bubble, but I don't mind it. I feel like it makes sense for me right now. And I feel really, really fortunate to have gotten this job out of college. And so, yeah, it's good, but I definitely miss being with the crew.
yeah, no, I feel that. So, all right. So today I was just gonna ask you some questions. Like,
Okay.
like it's kind of experimental, kind of new. So bear with me, and anyone listening also bear with me. Yeah, I'm just gonna ask some questions about your life, some some challenges, but also like some things that energize you. I want to talk a little bit about like your roots, the things that keep you grounded in life,
Yeah.
and just hear a little bit more about your story. Is that cool?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. What do you think are some roots that ground you personally?
I think family and like the values that we were raised in as a family, which I think our family, especially, it's hard not to tie that to our faith. I think there's such value in having an eternal perspective and not looking at things so like in the moment. I can't tell you like how many times like I've gotten overwhelmed with something and just switched my perspective from like really myopic and like very like in that moment in that day and switched it to more of like a long-term even an eternal perspective and how that's just really helped me to understand a little bit better like what my actual purpose. I mean, we were talking about this last night with work, like
Yeah.
just getting super overwhelmed about something with work and just being able to step back and say my job is important and it helps like me live the kind of life that I want to live, but in all reality, like it's just a job. Like it's this company isn't life or death, but the things that actually matter are the things that are like rooted in my family, in my faith, and in the relationships around me. So
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, family, faith, your relationships are all things that allow you to not get so caught up in the day-to-day stresses and things like that at
yeah.
work and with, I guess, other relationships. That's a good point.
And just like take a step back. Like I think it you when you think about what there's a really good like discourse by a church leader that I like, and it talks about what matters most is what lasts the longest. And I think from a religious perspective, that's definitely true. But like, I mean, realistically, just from like a day to day perspective, right? Like the things that matter the most are the things that are going to last the longest. So those people that are you feel like are really like going to be around the longest, the decisions that you make that have like long term effects on your life, I think that helps me to learn what weight to put on decisions, right? Like, will this affect me for a long time? Or is it just something that's like going to be annoying for the next week or the next month? Or is this something that, like my job is something that shapes me for like a couple of years at least, right?
Right.
And so that felt like an important decision to me and like something worth stressing about, right? But, like whether or not I go on like this weekend trip with like with friends, like I let that build up all the stress in my head because I like, oh, I'm like, do I have enough money for it? Like, is that a good use of my time? Am I going to get everything done this weekend if I go? And those things that take up all this energy, they just don't need to, right? Because like
Right.
those decisions like ultimately don't have like those like long-term effects.
I think that's a really good point and a good reason to like focus on talking about our roots and the things that help us zoom out in those moments. I definitely agree. What are the activities, people, or experiences that energize you? What are some of those things that energize you?
That's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and I guess I haven't really thought of it in the sense of things that like give me energy.
Yeah,
But
me
I've
neither.
been thinking about like when do I feel like the most myself and like the most comfortable in like what situations are those? I recently went on a trip to Arizona and got to see some of my best friends there. And I remember like wow, I just have this like really distinct like moment that I was like sitting in a Chick-fil-A with like two of like my best friends that I roomed with in college. And we were just laughing about who knows what and just like talking about our lives. And like, I just
Yeah.
remember thinking in that moment, like, this is like me at my best. Like, this, I just feel so like at peace and like so comfortable. And
Chick-fil-A
like
does that.
Chick-fil-A. So, yeah, sorry.
That
I
is
hope
your
you didn't think I
son.
was going towards these people. Chick-fil-A energizes me in a way that
Exactly.
nothing else can.
That spicy chicken
It,
sandwich.
wow. I'm more of a classic myself, but
Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but I think that there are like certain people that I've noticed that like I am so myself with
Mhm.
in a way that like I've loved the people that I've met here in Arkansas, and I can feel myself starting to feel more at home here.
Yeah.
But there are friends that it's just different with, you know, and people that it's just different with. I feel really similar when I'm like with our family. I think I talked a lot about when Ashlyn lived here last summer and like what like a fulfilling time that was for me. Like every
Yeah.
day just felt like a great day. And like I just felt like very complete having her here. But I've started to feel that I've like noticed, I've started to acknowledge that feeling, right? And I think before it was like very obvious with like my best friends and my family. But I've started to notice it in just like things that I do. I've noticed it in places that I like to go. There's like a park here that I really like to go on walks at. And like just how natural it feels for me to be there and like how easy it is for me to like let go of like anxieties and like really connect with nature in that way, which is funny because I'm not like I don't feel like I like love nature like all this, you know, me, I like don't really like camping and like, but there
Right.
are like places here that like I've really like started to find just like this like connection to myself and like to I guess like God, like in just like a very like relaxing and like peaceful way. So I also I do activities too. I feel like I guess I
Right.
didn't really talk about like things that I like to do, but
No, no, but that's like really big. You're saying like important relationships, good, wholesome relationships with like your friends and with your family
yeah.
members. And then also sometimes like
I've
aspects of nature,
yeah,
right?
alone time. Like I've like found myself being very comfortable alone and I like
Okay.
really like appreciate those like moments when I
Anything specific when you're alone? Like
normally like
certain,
when I'm like walk like on like walks and just like able to
gotcha.
like I've made a really concerted effort over probably the last like 3 or 4 years to be comfortable with myself
Yeah.
and like do things alone. And when I first started doing it, I would like like I would like go to the movies by myself, or I would like go on walks like without my phone and like without like any
Mm,
music and like not call anybody and like turn off music in my car and just like learn how to like enjoy like my own thoughts and like be able to feel comfortable without a distraction. And that time has turned from something that I was just trying to be comfortable with to something that like I really enjoy and I feel like I almost need now. Like I've almost like made myself slightly introverted and like needing that time
nice.
alone.
So like in those moments, like is it literally just the absence of sound and stimulation that you find solace in, and like, or is it like you think of certain things that like make you happy in those quiet times, or
Yeah.
like
I think it kind of depends on like what's going on. I feel like the older I get, the easier I get overstimulated, and so
right,
like
right.
I do enjoy just like disconnecting from the like the noise of like everything and
Yeah.
everyone, like even people I like love dearly. Like I love my roommate, but it's good for me to just like not be talking to someone all the time. But also like I feel like I've learned to get to know myself and like understand the way that I think and the things that like make me anxious. And so I feel like I've almost learned how to like talk myself down. So like when I get like really overwhelmed and I've had just like a day where I'm feeling like work was crazy or like things with like relationships are like getting really sticky and like when I'm alone, I feel like I know how to like talk to myself. And that was something like I like very much like tried to learn because I used to feel like I always had to call like my best friend or call like my sister to or someone to like talk through what was happening in my life because I couldn't like process it without that.
Right.
But I feel like I didn't want to have to do that and I wanted to be able to kind of talk to myself about that. Anyway, that's kind of off topic, but like I feel like sometimes I just need the quiet and sometimes I need to just think through things and I've like learned to appreciate thinking through them by myself before taking them to other people and like getting other people's like influence on what I want to do.
Right. Nice. No, I like it. I think that's like a really important thing. Like, I think a lot of people are scared of their being alone with their thoughts, or they get
Yeah.
overwhelmed from it because they don't really know how to handle it. So that it just gets
Yeah.
like bottled up emotion and they don't want to think about it. So they try to like, talk to people
Yeah.
naturally, talk through it. But I think there's a something there about being able to just like experience peace and quiet and process it in that way as well.
Yeah.
So that's neat.
Yeah. I think there is like a lot of work that like goes in like I feel like at first like you have to go from kind of just that level of I'm uncomfortable with this to like I just want to be less uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But like being able to really turn it into like an asset. Like it is a good it's not just I'm doing something I'm not comfortable with. It's all of a sudden like this is something that is good for me and like fuels me and helps me like be myself and turning it from a weakness into a strength, I guess.
Yeah.
Being able to like spend time alone in your own thoughts. I don't think it's necessarily something we just have to like overcome so that we're no longer uncomfortable, but it's something that we can actually turn into a benefit
Yeah.
for us.
No, absolutely. What kind of storms have you had in life? How did you face them? How did it help you grow? Anything you could share with us?
I've, had a really like good life and I haven't faced a lot of the struggles that a lot of people have gone through. But I can think of, a couple times when like things were really hard for me. Since I moved here to Arkansas, I had some health problems when I first moved out here and that was really hard. You were at school when I struggled with like my mental health for a chunk of time and that was like really difficult for me. But I guess we can talk about that time just being in school and I had just never struggled with anxiety or depression before and I felt like I'd had a lot of like times in my life where like that could have hit me, like being in the Dominican Republic for 18 months, so like away from family, like I just had never like struggled with mental health that way and it just kind of like hit me out of nowhere and I had no tools on like how to deal with that. I felt like very like distant from everyone. It was like winter time in Idaho. So like
Yeah,
I didn't
that
feel like I
definitely does
had a
not
lot
help.
of like outlets.
Yeah.
I was really struggling academically. My major was like really like hard for me and that was really stressful. And then I was in like a high stress like service role at church and that was like weighing on me. And it just like I don't know. It was so weird. I not a big crier, haven't ever really been a big crier. I will say like I was on the verge of tears like 90% of the time. Like
Wow.
I just always felt like I could like I don't know if you've ever had like been on the verge of tears where you just feel like anyone says anything wrong, it's just gonna like send you over the edge.
Mm.
And like it was just like that all of the time. And I think what I was like most scared of, and this actually goes for my health problems too. I was most scared that it would never go away. Like that
Mm.
it would just be because I know people like struggle with like constant anxiety and like depression that they just like can't escape. And it's not that they're doing anything wrong, but it's always with them. And that was like my biggest fear is that and I feel like that made it worse. Is like I just like there was like no light. I felt like I was like trying everything that like I could think of and like really diving into like the spiritual side of things and like trying to exercise and like be consistent in that and like that was like stressing me out more as I had all these new things that I wanted to do. I wanted to be
Right.
like in the temple super regularly, or reading my scriptures like for like a long time every day. And like, I just felt like if I could get all those things under control, then I would have no reason to be anxious, and I would like have the Lord's help, and like, and then to do those things and to not feel like you're receiving that help, like I felt like just like made it even worse. And the craziest thing I think is that that lasted for me, luckily, a short time, about 3 months. And then I kind of started to come out of it. I felt like it wasn't just like one day I was like better, but I started to just like have less, like more, instead of having being anxious all the time and having pockets of peace, I felt like I, had pockets of anxiety, and they started to get further apart. And I started to really prioritize my mental health. There were things that during those 3 months that I had like tried to like start doing to help me. And one of those was meditation,
Nice.
something I'd like never done before. But
How did you do I don't know. I hear it sometimes and I'm like, I just immediately picture
yeah.
someone on a yoga mat, like just home. But I don't think that's like the same for everybody. So what was
Yeah.
your experience actually doing that?
Well, because I was kind of the same way. I don't feel like we really like talked a lot about meditation growing up, and like it wasn't
Right.
something I was like really familiar with. And so I knew I wanted it to be more than just mental silence, like I didn't want it to just be like, oh, like meditation time, like during like quiet hour at church, like I just sit by myself. I wanted to be a lot more intentional with that. So I actually downloaded the Headspace app. They have like a student deal where it's like $10 for like a year, like something incredible. And I was
Wow.
really, really grateful for that deal, because I couldn't afford, I had like, we were talking about like I had like looked into like therapy. I couldn't really afford it. I had looked into a life coach, and I couldn't afford that.
Right.
I was very broken in college. And so like Headspace, like being so like readily available, was really cool. And they had a lot of guided meditation where it like gives you like prompts on like what to think about, like how to focus on your breathing, how to like clear your mind, which at the time, like with like such constant anxiety, which was mostly what I was struggling with, was this like never relenting like sense of anxiety. Like I was just in like a panic all of the time.
Hmm.
And that like time where I was like focusing on my breathing and like learning to like let go of my thoughts and like really gain control over my mind was really, really useful. So I actually like, I had a goal to every day do like a 10 to 15 minute like headspace session. They have like different things. And then I would actually usually do one at night too, because I couldn't fall asleep. But they have like sleep, they call them sleep casts, like a podcast. And it was like one of the only things that could like help me fall asleep. So even after like the anxiety started to get better, I still tried to be really consistent with Headspace. I think that, and what we were talking about, like me going on walks and like learning how to be like okay in my mind, like those are things that I learned during that time when I practiced very active meditation. And I don't have Headspace anymore. It got more expensive when I graduated college, but like that practice was like really important to me. And I started exercising. I got really, really into running, and I ran a lot without music, and just like learned to like appreciate exercise. And I've been like more or less consistent with that throughout my life, but it is like a tool that I use when I do start to feel really anxious. Like running is something that even now, like I'll just like go on a run to, I feel like it just like clears out my head. Like I feel like it kind of gets rid of some of like those extra things that don't matter as much, and helps me like focus on what I'm actually stressed about.
Yeah.
And so I've found that to be really helpful, obviously like exercise. And I think the last thing that like I learned during that time that I still use is like sitting in a temple parking lot.
Hmm.
And the temple itself, I love going to the temple for like service, but sometimes that can almost like be its own sense of anxiety to me, to like make an appointment and like go in and like be like actively like paying attention, and like
Right.
sometimes like I feel like that would like add to my plate, and I didn't, that was also like during COVID, so maybe that wasn't even an option, and that's why I feel this way. But I found a lot of solace in like going and like being in a holy place and like learning to just be still and like connect with my heavenly father during that time. And I still do that. I'm really like fortunate to live close to a temple, but when I get overwhelmed or like I just feel like I'm like getting worked up about things that just aren't important, I feel like it's different to me than like just going on a walk and like being in my head. It's like being very intentional about seeking out, like God in that time and like connecting with him, because nothing gives me more perspective than like remembering that like God has a plan for me and that like I'm his daughter, and that regardless what it is that I'm going through, as long as I stay close to him, like nothing that bad can happen to me. And I can tell myself that all the time, but it hits different coming from him. So I feel like those three things are things that I learned during that time that I still practice really heavily right now.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. Those are like really big tools like for people,
Yeah.
and that's awesome to hear from you too. So like meditation, finding, therapy wasn't financially available, so
Yeah.
finding
And
a
I'm sure it would
workaround
have
for
been
that.
great, right? But like
Right.
that was a very big help for me.
Yeah. So the Headspace app, which is really awesome. And I'm sure even if like people don't buy a thing or if it's more
Yeah.
expensive,
Well,
there's
there's
like
like Headspace is like on
YouTube.
Netflix now too. Like you can like do like
Perfect.
it feels more available. I wouldn't be
Right.
surprised if they had like a podcast or something. I
Oh,
don't
that's a
know if
good
they
point.
do, but I would imagine you can find similar things. The
Exactly.
app was so easy to use and it made it feel so easy to
Yeah.
understand meditation. I really liked it a lot.
No,
I
that's
like
awesome.
big fan of the Headspace app. It was great.
And then just getting out, running, clearing your mind, and then
Exercise, like
yeah,
your body
exercise.
and your mind are so closely connected. It's crazy. I'm always shocked at like how if I the times that I like now like in my like everyday, I'll have like a terrible week and I'll just like think back on like have I done anything active, right? Like have I
Yeah.
like prioritized like my health in any way? And that's connected to like what am I eating, right? Like how, am I eating healthy? Am I eating like good meals but like really crappy like foods all the time like in between?
I have literally like felt that, like, or sometimes when I'm like, oh, down or super low energy, I'm like, okay, what did I eat
Yeah.
just recently?
And
And it
just think
like
about it.
directly correlates sometimes. I'm
Yeah.
like, wow, I had a ton of sugar, and
Yep.
the sugar crash is real in my
Yeah.
body,
Yeah.
how I reacted. So it's
Yeah.
a really good point.
Yeah. So in addition to exercise, like I feel way more intentional. Food's like tricky for me. I'm not great about it. I'm not super consistent, but I do like try to recognize how it
Yeah.
ties to like my mood and my attitude and like my anxiety and depressive levels.
Yeah.
But then also like hydration, I feel like, like
That's a big one
it's a
too.
big like it just like and sleep. Oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan of sleep. So I think that like our bodies and our minds just like we can't try to separate them, and I don't think that we should stress ourselves out and be like, I have to be going to the gym every single day, but like walks and like not sitting down for like ever and not just like letting yourself like veg, like it feels like that's what you want to do when you're anxious, but like you just feel so much worse because your body isn't like receiving like the care and attention that it needs.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's huge. Wow. So, I mean, yeah. So pretty, I guess I'm trying to summarize your points, but meditation, exercise, and then that final one of like being in a holy place, being somewhere that's, special, sacred to you, where you can think, not necessarily going in or like doing something and adding to your plate, but like just being somewhere where you can calm your mind, where you feel at ease,
Yeah.
to allow yourself to sit with the thoughts and realize that that's okay, like to process it. You don't always have to be doing something, and a lot of times that makes it worse,
Yeah.
in your
Yeah.
case. So nice. No, those are great points. And so you mentioned, this is kind of the last thing I was going to say, because I just think it's a great thing for people listening. You mentioned you felt like that and you didn't think it was ever going to end. Like you had this anxiety that was just never ending. And then you said you started getting these like pockets of, all right, I was happy. And then you had pockets of anxiety where it was like definitely a lot less. How do you feel today? How often do you experience those pockets of anxiety? Have they lessened even more than when you had first come out of that? And what do you do to be where you're at right now?
Yeah, I think part of the reason that I needed to go through that and experience, like a struggle of mental health in that way is like, I don't think I ever acknowledged anxiety before. Like, I don't think that I really like understood what it was like to feel anxious. I think I had definitely felt anxiety, but I would never like acknowledged it. And now I still get very anxious. Like I have a job that I find really stressful, and I moved to a new place where I didn't know anyone. I feel a lot more social anxiety than I used to. I feel like I used to just be go, 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 and I could meet like a million people. And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel very much more like easily drained. But I I guess I say that because now I feel like I can identify when I'm feeling anxious. And I think that I know the things that make me anxious now, and I know what I need to do to kind of reset. And so I feel really fortunate that anxiety is not a constant for me, but it is definitely like a consistent's not the right word either, but it's around, like it's not like I never experience it. It just doesn't scare me the same way that it did then. And I haven't felt it as severely as I did then. But now I know like if I'm feeling anxious, like that I either need to prioritize myself a little bit more and make sure that like I'm stepping away when I need to,
Yeah.
asking for help. My roommate is really great about like me saying, "Hey, like I don't know what it is, but I'm just feeling like very anxious. Like I'm going to go on a run and I'm going to come home and I'm going to go to sleep early because I'm very affected by sleep. Like I know that I need to sleep." And so like she's such a good sport about that. Or sometimes I do need to talk about it. Like I'm not always in my head. Like that's not good for me either. And she's been great about that. Or I have really good friends that I can turn to when I need to. But I actually like I'm really grateful for this. Like feels silly to say, but like I'm really grateful for these times that like I feel that way, because I feel like I appreciate the good times a lot more. Like I appreciate my mental health, and I know the importance of like prioritizing it. And so I feel like I do, because I know that like I'm not immune to feeling anxious. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's not super inspiring because I get anxious regularly,
No, yeah, it's
but
part of daily life. Like with the job, there's like new anxieties
there's
that
new
you have to
anxieties. Also, I
experience.
feel like there's like a difference between like temporary anxiety. Like sometimes it's like I had a really stressful day at work and I'm feeling like very anxious and I know exactly what it's about.
Right.
But sometimes I just like, I'm like, whoa, like I just feel a lot of anxiety and I don't know where this is coming from and I
Yeah.
don't know what it's from. And I feel okay with that. Like it doesn't have to be like as scary. It just could be a sign from like our mind or our body that we need to, do something different, do something a little different,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful for that, because like I'll get in like habits and like bad habits and ruts where I don't think to exercise, or I don't think to like really care about what I'm eating, or I get like distant from like the spiritual things that I feel like keep me calm, and then I'll just stay on that path if nothing ever like throws me back into check, right? And I feel like sometimes I'm grateful for those little like wake up calls where I'm like, why do I feel this way? And then I have a second to like reevaluate what the things I've been doing and the way I've been spending my time, and I can kind of be a lot more intentional about what I'm doing. And I appreciate anything that makes me more intentional, because I want to be in control of what I'm doing and in my life, and not just letting it kind of run itself.
Yeah. No, I think that's amazing. I think you have a really great head on your shoulders. The fact that you're able to like deal with that, recognize that it's still going to come, right? But like now you have the tools to handle it.
Yeah.
And it gives you a new like helps you appreciate the good times when you are feeling full, like and happy
Yeah.
and energized. So I think that's a great way of seeing it. And honestly, like just for anyone that struggles with that, like, or is in that thought pattern that maybe you were about, like, I don't know if this is ever going to end. And that was the most anxiety causing part of it. It sounds like was like, is this a forever thing? Some people may be in that right now.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone going through that in that state right now?
I think, like recognize the things that you can do for yourself. I think it's like so important to recognize the things that you can control, and that I mentioned some of the things that like really helped me, and it's really important to recognize when there are things that you can't control, and like the things that are like beyond like you just being able to calm yourself down or being able to like take a nap and feel better
Yeah.
and get help. I think that, there are a lot of resources out there. Some of them involve other people and some of them don't, but utilizing your resources because we all deserve to be happy. And I think that, like I believe that like God wants that for us. I believe that's what we want for ourselves. But there's not like a wrong way and a right way to do it. We're just like trying to get to know ourselves and like figure out like what it is that like brings us happiness and brings us peace. And so like find that for yourself, and like if all you can do is create like a little moment in your life of like peace, then like find what that is that like brings you that moment and like build on that.
Wow.
I don't know, that's, I feel like what I would try to do. But
Yeah.
I know that like what I went through wasn't, nearly as bad as like what some people go through, but I do feel like if you can like find peace in like any way, like accept that little moment and like try to like seek after that. Don't like give in to like making yourself or feeling like worse.
This is something like that I resonate with deeply myself because I was totally in the same shoes. Like, and I just remember feeling like I was alone, that I was always going to feel that way. And I just really did not understand. So, something you said really spoke to me. And I hope it speaks to anyone who's listening that, you are worth it and you deserve to be happy. Everyone deserves to be happy. So, if you're listening to this, you deserve to be happy. And you owe it to yourself, to find those little moments, like you're saying, that do make you happy and to fill your life with more of those things, and then move from this constant anxiety state into a state of, pockets of anxiety, because life is full of that. They're full of ups and
Yeah.
downs. That's just part of it. But if you can learn to control that and then find those moments that make you happiest, like you you deserve it, you deserve
Yeah.
the best. So, and I'm glad that you found that and that you're able to manage that. I think that's really amazing and really inspiring. I remember like thinking when I came out of that and like started getting just the pockets of anxiety, I remember thinking like, wow, I'm so grateful that like that it was possible to come out of that, because I didn't even believe
Yeah.
during that time that it was possible, and so I think I needed like to hear that when I was in those moments, right? I'm glad that we found the tools, but I think
Mhm.
some people don't have them. So maybe they're searching through podcasts and listening to this right
Yeah,
now.
that's true.
So you're worth it. You can do this.
Yeah.
So thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing the things you shared with us today,
Yeah.
City. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Turn Outward podcast, and we will see you in the next episode.